The International Monetary Fund said that the bailout package agreement of $2.9 billion is contingent on Sri Lankan authorities following through with previously agreed measures. IMF conditions for the loan also include receiving financial assurances from Sri Lanka's official creditors and efforts by the country to reach an agreement with private creditors.
The so-called extended fund facility agreed with between us and the authorities extend for 4 years. And then the total amount is distributed across over these 4 years. And the first disbursement will come at the time of IMF board approval. And then it's going to be distributed across program period. And each disbursement is tied to the successful review by the executive board. So this is going to be distributed across program period.
The IMF warned that creditor support is paramount for the program's success for the benefit of Sri Lanka.
If creditors are not willing to provide these assurances, that would indeed deepen the crisis here in Sri Lanka and would undermine its repayment capacity. So a deepening crisis means that essentially the resources available to service the debt would become less. So it is actually in the interest of all creditors to collaborate together and with Sri Lanka so that Sri Lanka can emerge from this crisis as quickly as possible and regain its repayment capacity and service this new debt that will come out of these debt negotiations. So it really is in the interest of all creditors to work with Sri Lanka on this front.
The program by the International Monetary Fund comprises of 7 key elements. Number 1. Raising fiscal revenue to support fiscal consolidation. Starting from one of the lowest revenue levels in the world, the program will implement major tax reforms. These reforms include making personal income tax more progressive and broadening the tax base for corporate income tax and VAT. The program aims to reach a primary surplus of 2.3% of GDP by 2025. Introducing cost recovery-based pricing for fuel and electricity to minimize fiscal risks arising from state-owned enterprises. The team welcomed the authorities' already announced substantial revenue measures and energy pricing reforms. Mitigating the impact of the current crisis on the poor and vulnerable by raising social spending and improving the coverage and targeting of social safety net programs. Restoring price stability through data-driven monetary policy action, fiscal consolidation, phasing out monetary financing, and stronger central bank autonomy that allow pursuing a flexible inflation targeting regime. The new Central Bank Act is a cornerstone of this strategy. Rebuilding foreign reserves through restoring a market-determined and flexible exchange rate supported by the comprehensive policy package under the program. Safeguarding financial stability by ensuring a healthy and adequately capitalized banking system and by upgrading financial sector safety nets and regulatory standards with a revised Banking Act. Reducing corruption vulnerabilities through improving fiscal transparency and public financial management. Introducing a strong anti-corruption legal framework and conducting an in-depth governance diagnostic supported by IMF technical assistance. The IMF said that there is a clear need to raise tax revenue to support fiscal adjustment reducing of fiscal deficit.
The tax reforms under the program should be also designed to be progressive, and progressive meaning that ensuring greater contributions from high-income earners to minimize the impact of fiscal adjustment on the vulnerable and the poor. And in this context, one of the ways to ensure progressivity of tax revenue tax measures is to use personal income tax, including higher tax rate for high income earners. And here, the wealth tax is coming in as you mentioned. So I would like to highlight here that preparation will take time, and then that needs to be properly designed.
Enjoy 1% merchant commission when you accept Lanka Pay cards. Contact these banks today.
From the IMF's perspective, our arrangement is with the people of Sri Lanka. We're here to help the country and for the country to emerge from the crisis and the people to enjoy prosperity going forward. So the political environment matters in the sense that these economic reforms need to be carried out. There needs to be a government that has the mandate to carry out the reforms, and there needs to be buy-in by society to support the reforms and to move forward with them.
In order to obtain the funds through the IMF, we need to first come into an agreement with our creditors on our debts. If someone thinks that the IMF will write a check by the end of that, that's not how it happens. Our next step will be to discuss with our creditors on our debts, especially with China. We have to start discussions with China on a debt restructuring plan. Next, it should be with India. Afterwards, we have to open up discussions with multi-party entities like the World Bank and Asian Development Bank. Next, we will have to discuss with the international entities that have provided us debt through sovereign bonds. For that, we are consulting with international financial and legal advisors Lazard and Clifford Chance. If we can come to some consensus on these debts with our creditors, the fact that how long our grace period will be or how long they will postpone will not matter to us to sign those agreements. What we need is some consensus. When we arrange those agreements with our creditors, we will be able to present those agreements to the Executive Committee of the IMF and discuss on this staff level agreement. If we get the assurance from the Executive Committee of the IMF on our debt sustainability, the IMF will write their first check to us. Once that happens, the difficult phase will begin.
Economic recovery and your manner of governance have a strong connection. You see, if a beggar comes to my doorstep and begs for food for their children, for his children, I'll be compelled to give him some money. He might come regularly, get some money and go. But the day I find out that he is using that money to get drunk and go home and beat up his wife and his children, naturally I will stop giving him money after that. So that's what the international community also does. You scream here saying, how can you stop giving us money? You can't prescribe to us human rights standards, etc. No, you can. If you find that that money is being misused or you are oppressing other people in this country, surely those countries will not lend you money.